All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our next fighter making his way to the cage, Vince Cachero.
Our first 135-pound tonight stars young Vincent Cachero against Demar George. Vince making his way to the cage right now. The 23-year-old stands 5 feet 6 inches tall, fighting out of Playa Vista, originally from Hawaii though. A member of the Systems Training Center team there under Ian Harris, training for about a year. His last fight was against Tanner Chapman, a submission loss, but we can expect some big changes here for Vince in this tonight's fight.
Yeah, definitely, and I think he's starting to take things a little seriouser. Last year, he came in first place in the North American BJJ no-gi division. He also went to the MMA draft this year. There was a draft for amateur athletes where Uriah Faber actually ran a combine at the UFC Expo in July, which is, you know, it was a great little thing where guys can gain scholarships and gain access to other fighters, and it's very big for him. He also, he's a manager at Systems Training Center, so that means he is in the gym often. He has to be there because he's not just a fighter, he has to punch in and make his money, so he's in the gym. Nothing
working better than being a gym rat.
Yeah, definitely good to be a gym rat. When I was younger, I was a gym rat because, it's a great place to have a job and it keeps you there, you make your money, and you have no excuse not to go to training.
Now, he got caught in that triangle by Chapman in their last fight. His defense for that submission wasn't exactly what you would expect. What do you think we might see differently from Vince tonight?
There's a lot of guys I've learned from, you don't always want to defend with punches. Punches is something you want to do.
And his opponent making his way to the cage, Demar King George.
And back to what I was saying about getting out of the triangle, you want to defend the submission before you try to punch the guy. You want to get out of it, make sure it's nothing that's in danger. You could be in a triangle and throw some strikes when you're not in danger. So if you think a guy's going to keep a triangle on for a long time, you can punch him in the face.
Well, we'll see if there's a triangle on the way here from 33-year-old Demar George. The Missouri native stands 5 feet 8 inches tall. His background is in freestyle, mixed martial arts, currently with the Dream Killer Fight Team out of UFC Torrance. He had 1 year of high school wrestling, and now he's more of a BMX rider and an occasional near-scratch golfer every once in a while. He's been focusing on combat lately, the last couple of years putting in time with Muay Thai, really trying to bring up his competitive nature. He just always wanted to be in combat.
Don't we all?
Not me.
Yes, you do.
Maybe a little bit.
You do. You're here.
I am here.
You're here. You want to be in it.
Demar said about Vince that his opponent tonight has good strikes and leg kicks. Demar's goal is to keep this fight standing. He wants to win by knockout if it's possible, but most importantly, of course, to put on a great fight. One thing you will say that while Vince did get caught in that triangle last time, he really had good fluid movement. He's a really sticky wrestler. So Demar really believing heavily in his hands. I think he wants to keep it out of a place that he knows Cachero can be successful at.
Yeah, and as a wrestler, there are certain tendencies, because I'm a wrestler myself, we have stuff we always go back to no matter what, and that's a tough thing to figure out what you keep from wrestling and what you drop. We'll see what he keeps, and you base a lot of that off of your opponent and what you're going to bring to the table, and we'll see what he brings today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Our next fight is scheduled for 3 2-minute rounds in the 135-pound division. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing practitioner. He comes to the cage with a record of no wins and 1 loss. He stands at 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing at 134.8 pounds. Representing Systems Training Center from Honolulu, Hawaii, Vince Cachero. And his opponent across the cage, fighting out of the red corner, a Muay Thai fighter. He comes to the cage with a record of 1 win and 1 loss. He stands at 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighing at 135.4 pounds. Fighting with the UFC gym in Torrance from Poplar Bluff, Missouri, Demar George! Man in charge of the action, Michael Bell.
And we are now ready for this 135-pound fight between our blue corner fighter, Hawaii native Vince Cachero, and in the red corner, the Missourian Demar George. Round number 1, it starts here. Fighters touch gloves early. George goes for a kick to the body. Cachero immediately on for a double leg. George, though, doing a good job of defending, keeping himself on the feet, and he turns it around for a nice hip toss.
Very nice, and immediately starts striking. He's transitioning, looks like he's gonna transition to a possible knee bar. He's gotta be careful when you go for submissions, you can get punched in the face.
Cachero is very tricky. Now also those people watching at home, only straight leg locks are allowed, no rotational leg locks. So no heel hooks, nothing that twists the knee.
Exactly, and here he is in a half guard position. This guillotine is somewhat tight. The lower half of the body is really not elevating the choke as much, so he should be able to get out of this with a little bit of pressure, and he's somewhat out of it. He should end up on top here, and he does.
Notice the big difference, struck for a moment, but then started working on position rather than trying to punch his way out of the submission. That's a direct improvement from the last time we saw Cachero in the cage.
Well, I'm sure he realized, because he's probably getting yelled at after the fight by his team and his coaches, get out of the submission before you punch the guy, then you can punch the guy. And here's on top, working the body.
You know, Cachero not lacking in talent. Demar George really fighting to keep Cachero from passing. So far, these two have been pretty evenly matched back and forth as this fight has gone on.
Yeah, very, very evenly matched. This could be a very high intense war. Very good job of getting himself a secure position. He should be able to stay here for a little bit and work.
Cachero now staying nice and tight here on George.
There is a possible transition to an armbar. I'm not sure where his Vince's jiu-jitsu is at, but we'll see if he goes for it. With a short time, it's always a good time to go for a submission. When you hear that, it's always a good time to go for submission, because if it fails, the round ends and you're in no danger.
An attempted knee there by Cachero right before the buzzer, and that's the end of round number 1. Cachero raising his hands, showing everybody that he believes he won that round. I think he has a fair argument for sure.
He does have a fair argument, you know, and to somewhat, I'm sure Demar has seen Vince's fight, and when you fight a wrestler, you know, a lot of times through training camp, they say don't throw any kicks, and he threw a kick to start the fight and almost got taken down. So shows he's not really too scared on where the fight's going, per se.
Well, Demar George definitely believes in his Muay Thai. That's where he thought that he would have the advantage tonight. And he may very well have a striking advantage. We just haven't seen it yet because Cachero was so quick at that double leg.
You know, if I was his coach, knowing these are 2-minute rounds, one kick can lead to 2 minutes on your back in these 2-minute rounds. If a wrestler, because a lot of our wrestlers, we see a kick coming at us, we drive in and we catch it and we use it as a double leg transition. So I would say he should be throwing more push kicks and teeps, straight strikes, and knees up the middle, because if a wrestler going for a takedown, let him eat a knee to the face.
Sweat dripping from the face here of Demar George. Cachero opening his mouth, breathing a bit. I think these guys have plenty left in the gas tank, but they're both a little tired. But let's see what they bring in for round number 2. Vince Cachero in the blue, Demar George in the red. Demar with an outside leg kick. A nice left jab, straight right combination. What we were talking about there, throwing those punches before throwing those kicks. Cachero with a couple of knees to the breadbasket.
That's exactly, his corner wants him to strike here, get a little separation, and because he landed 2 good strikes and he went right to a clinch. He needs to stay, you hear it from his corner, they want him to keep some distance.
A pretty deep kick to the body, but Cachero catches that one and turns it into another takedown. Seeing some thematic similarities from round number 1.
Exactly, and you hear his corner saying you have to get up out of that S. And what you have to do here is you have to be getting a lot of hip movement. And sometimes you got to take a couple strikes to regain your guard, knowing that there's a cage right behind you. Use it to get back up and cage walk.
You gotta wonder if Demar, where he is in terms of his cardio right now. You know, it's especially when you're an inexperienced fighter, it's kind of hard getting yourself used to the way that the cage might affect you. Even some experienced fighters get caught off guard by how they react. Demar, though, moving right now, doing his best to try to change the position in some way and see if he can get this back to the feet where he was more successful.
Refs telling, corners telling him to stand him up. I'm not sure that's going to happen from this position, especially this position. Moves into the mount.
Cachero with a high mount here. Let's see if he rolls that into an armbar. Can he secure that arm?
Does not look like he's going to be able because the elbow is past the crotch, but a possible triangle. Now he's in a spiderweb position going for the armbar with short time left.
Can Demar George last? Looks like he got that elbow out of the position. I believe that we will see a round number 3.
We will.
You know, that's a really interesting round compared to that first round. Demar came out early and quick, what we were talking about, throwing punches, and he connected hard with that one too.
Yeah, and I think you'll hear this a lot from me tonight. If I was his coach, I would be saying, you have to get out of the clinch, you have to land strikes, you have to keep space, keep distance, and work those strikes. You hit the guy, keep the distance, stay within your striking range, and do not get into a clinch, because clearly there is some sort of grappling and wrestling advantage on Cachero's side, and Demar George's team needs to tell him, you need to knock him out, and you can't clinch with the guy because you're not going to win. That's the type of mentality you have to get your guy into. You have to let him know you're not going to win unless you knock the guy out.
Do you think that George is a full 2 points down now, or could he win the round and still win the fight?
I don't think so. I think he's down a full 2 points, and to get a full 2 points in these 2 minutes, you really have to put the guy out. I think you'll not. If you have a 10-8 round, the fight's going to get ended.
All right, well, all hinges upon these last 2 minutes here at Club Nokia in LA Live. It's round number 3 between Cachero and George.
And now if I'm Cachero, I go in and get a takedown.
Cachero comes in with a long strike. Looked like it was mostly meant to set up that takedown, though, like you were talking about.
Yeah, and he will. And this is really dominant position. This looks a little complicated, but he's going to push up and get himself into a mount. And I hear the corner again tell him to stand him up, but we just hit the ground 4 seconds ago.
Cachero keeping his pressure on. But now look at this. George really working hard to get to those feet. He might actually have this.
You know, he's getting himself back up, but he's not securing the upper body. He should have locked on some sort of overhook or whizzer to secure the position to know that you're going to be facing the opponent when you get back up. Right here, a wrestler, we love being on top and love controlling this position. You know, some teams, hey, a minute 1 second, stay right there and hold the position.
You know, we talked about that sticky wrestling of Vince Cachero. We're seeing that so far tonight, especially here, the way he took the back. And notice you have Demar George trying to roll out, and easily Cachero transitions to the mount position.
Yeah, that's you know, when you have someone's back and they start rolling over, you just float your hips up and let them give you the mount, which is a better position to punch the guy in the face.
Cachero doing his best to capitalize on this great position. You know, you got to think he has the win secured at the moment, but you also have to love how he's still trying to push towards the win.
He is. He needs to push that elbow off his head and rain some strikes down. If he wants to get a finish, and who doesn't, I'd say he goes for that. But I think he's well aware that he just won himself his first fight of his career.
Cachero here doing his best to pour it on the waning moments. Lefts, and the occasional right. And that's it. That's our fight, folks. 3 rounds in the 135-pound division between Vince Cachero and Demar George. The fighters sharing a moment in the middle of the cage. You know, even though you gotta imagine that Cachero came out on top of this one, definitely a taxing fight, especially with those strikes that he absorbed.
Super taxing, and I always like to bring this up. I don't really know why. I think it's because a lot of these guys are going to go pro, and it's very taxing, and they only fought for 6 minutes. And you think of what we get as privileged MMA fans when the UFC has guys fight for 25 minutes.
Wow.
When, if we look at we have, 14 fights tonight? 14 times 2 is 28 minutes. So, right?
Well, 14 times 2, but then there's 3 rounds in each fight.
So if we had 2 title fights, then that would equal the entire card we have. So it shows the level of being from amateur to pro to world-class world championship fighter. I was talking to you earlier about I did a 25-minute fight one time, super taxing. So it's like there's so many different levels of MMA, and it's cool. Like I like these because as a fighter, you know that these 2 minutes you can give it your all and burn your gas tank out. You have to control position. You have to win that round fast. It's kind of like somewhat of a high school wrestling match in a way.
It's really great getting to rev that engine up into the red line for these fights. And we've seen that a few times here.
Because there is a difference, because guys that do fight pro and have 15-minute fights are going to have something in the reserve tank because they're like, oh, damn, there's like another 10 minutes left after this round? Like I got to fight for 10 more minutes? That's a long freaking time.
Yeah, you know, we just recently had that fight between Alistair Overeem and Travis Brown.
Exactly.
And you saw Alistair just really putting the pedal to the metal in those first few minutes.
Yeah, I think Alistair Overeem should fight 3 2-minute rounds because that's all he's got in his gas tank.
Can you go back to amateur? Is that allowed?
No, but he could probably go over to Holland and make some makeshift rules, and you know, someone will fight him, or you know, someone will. I know I will watch. I probably won't pay for it, but I'll stream it somewhere.
And now for our official decision, let's go to Salvador Arellano.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds of action, we go to the judges' scorecard. All 3 judges have scored the fight 30-27 for your winner by unanimous decision. Out of the blue corner, Vince Cachero!
I am here with your winner, Vince. That was a very impressive fight. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. He caught me with a good punch, made my nose a little bloody, but other than that, I felt awesome.
Now, you seemed really comfortable on the ground tonight. Was that the plan to come in and stick with your wrestling base and work the ground?
Yeah, you know, my jiu-jitsu, my wrestling has improved greatly. Systems Training Center, Ian Harris, Marcus Cole, Pedro Munoz, man, we got a great team, so thank you.
It was a wonderful fight. Looks like you got a lot of fans in the crowd tonight. What do you want to say to them?
Hey, thanks for coming, man. This all wouldn't be possible without you guys. We love you so much. Even that guy was booing me, I love him too. Demar is a good fighter, so hope to see you guys in the next show. Especially you in the hat.
Give it up for him, your winner, Vince Cachero!
One boo can't hold down your winner by unanimous decision, Vince Cachero.
Mm-hmm.